All right, so two more videos in this stretch, and we're good for the day. So, previous video, I was talking about how having a conversation with a friend of mine actually allowed me to listen. I don't know, I allowed me to hear something new while I was listening to her, which is awesome. I don't normally get that, right? But so far, I've had literally just two experiences where I found myself kind of hearing something new over the past year, 6 months, year, yeah, something like that. And being able to find consistency when it comes to finding new stuff and listening to new stuff from different people gives you a different appreciation and respect, right? But now this video is about speaking repeats what you what you know, and listening brings out something new. And I want to discuss what it actually means when something new comes out of you. That's if I'm not mistaken, it's a famous quote from the Dalai Lama, and his eternal quest to kind of bring happiness to the world, knowing full well what his people and what he is going through, and listening, words, and as I discussed empathy at one point, the impact words have on us really vary to who the people that are in front of us are. And sometimes we have people that are very important to us, and we listen to them and we notice that their words are not really resonating with us. It's kind of like if they're either getting closer to us or they're drifting further away. Or at least the way I look at how relationships are, there has to be a certain bond that brings us closer together, or something that's extracting us. We're either the laws of energy, I guess. It's just we're either getting closer or further away, and depending on the momentum, we kind of stop it, destroy it, or engage with it and then expand on it. But sometimes people that you don't really know that well, if they're actually listening to you, or if you're actually listening to them, you can notice something that describes a lot more of who they are and what they are and what kind of people you want. And they would actually be able to, their view changes, the way they look changes, the vision changes, the the way you look at them changes, the image you have in their head of them on your head changes. And in a way, that's what kind of that's one of the things that initiate a bond, or initiates an actual connection, as people say. And so, having a conversation, it was a normal conversation. It was just back and forth, her experiences, my experiences, and things. But then she was elaborating on, and I mentioned it in a previous video, the difference between judgment and discernment. And the minute she said that, I completely fell silent. A big part of me wanted her to, best way I can explain it is break a piece of my shell. And for whoever has watched any of my videos, would have probably against 200 videos, man. You guys just, I mentioned this once before, that we are not our we do not get out of our shell, because a lot of people say get out of your shell. I think we are that shell, and we have the power to kind of break our patterns. So when we're breaking our pattern, we're breaking part of our ego, because our ego is our shell, and we break it and then we fix it with something else. And the best way to look at it is a fragile ego is an ego made from plastic, and a strong ego is an ego probably made from steel. But ultimately, the ego that we want is a shell that's more similar to mist. Anything can go through, but yet the density of gas can actually guide whatever's going through, not to target us and flip it away. I need to get better at explaining this because in my head it makes sense because I watch a lot of anime and I watch a lot of like ki and just like I can explain I can explain spiritual energy if you want and using animes and chi and chakras and ki and all that stuff using all the mangas that I've read and these kinds of like sensational things that cover us in order for us to be protected. My favorite approach to our own ego would be Hunter x Hunter because over there are there are different elements of there are different elements. There are creators and there are basically conductors and there are like strength orders and each one's use their ego differently. So I think that'll be a very good way to elaborate on egos. I'm actually going to write an article about that. But why the fuck not from now till then? I'll make it as a note, and the new year would be that article. I'll do more research about it. But the goal, the idea is that we are this shell, which is the ego. And effectively, if we want to grow, we're not growing out of our shell, we're breaking our shell. Sometimes we're breaking the whole thing, or sometimes we're breaking it in pieces. And it's a very metamorphosis kind of thing, like a butterfly coming out of its cocoon, right? Like we create this cocoon, and once this cocoon is solid, we evolve through it. And then, in order for us to reach a different stage, we have to get out of it, break it, destroy it. And then when we grow out, it's a new shell. And then basically every single evolution is a new shell. Uh, as I was having a conversation with her, and again, I'm reflecting on the whole like simplicity of how we connect and how people could actually like realize something is changing inside of them. What happens is when I fell silent and she started talking about discernment, I was very much excited. I think one of the first times in a long time, one of the first moments, in a few moments in a long time, where I was looking forward for somebody to shatter my ego, to break this shell of mine. Because for the first time, I realized that listening to somebody that kind of has, I don't know if it's her aura or it's because she was honest about how she saw the world. And anyone who's honest about how they see their own reality is able to express the truth of their own reality. So anytime you're talking to people, you're engaging with people, you can't believe them. You have to believe that they believe it's the truth, and to be able to trust that that's truly how they see things. That's a different level. Like me believing you're telling me the truth versus me believing you're actually me believing that you believe you're that's the truth versus me trusting that that is your truth that you're explaining to me. So I'm going to repeat it and I'm also going to type it so I don't lose it. Me believing you are telling me the truth. Me believing that you believe that is the truth. Me trusting that that is your truth. These three are different things. With her, I trusted that that was her truth, which allowed for me to kind of feel vulnerable and kind of exposed. And the whole speaking, when the idea came to me and it was like, oh, speaking does actually repeat what you know, because ultimately, anytime I spoke, it's me telling you their story. But listening brings out something new, brings out something new. Why did I word it this way? I worded it this way, and as I explain it to you right now, I notice that it's me literally looking at her and looking forward for her next words, minutes, the next minutes with her, to shatter my existing ego and allow me to explore something completely new, completely different, completely relevant, completely welcomed by me, not just intruding. And where I am still exactly the same, I'll just be able to kind of like do the extra like bits of I say expansion. I say like, like it's just like the whole like pushing yourself out of it and feeling that you actually grew. But the reality is, what you did was you exchanged what you already had that doesn't serve a purpose towards the thing that you want to be. Oof, that made me choke a bit. That's feelings. 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 And ultimately, the next day in the morning, as I was thinking about that conversation that I had with her, and we talked for like 8 hours, man, a few points came out, and that kind of became a note and became a video. And here's me right now reflecting on it, on how that small gap that she was able to create because she was truthful and honest to herself allowed me to want her to completely get involved with how I look at the world. And even though she's not aware of it, but me opening up and wanting her to kind of like give me, explain those words, share that mentality, share that structure that she had, has in its place guided the next things I'll be doing and the next way I approach things. And it's huge because, like, a completely different outlook on life mixed with mine, and then me being able to have this kind of engagement with other people, regardless of how we connect, regardless of how close the bond is, like to be able to truly look at people and to truly understand when they're being honest or when they're being themselves or when they're completely sharing something that they see out of the world. I think that's a new level, or at the very least, it's a new experience that I haven't had before when it comes to people. And pointing it out, man, is making me feel kind of cute and optimistic, funky even. All right. Remember, I'm hashtagging this under her name so that she can find it. So let's see if she does.